If you enjoy the subject matter of these podcasts, then you would definitely enjoy any of the 3 Patreon discussion groups that are available. You can read about these groups by going to theinfinitesparkofbeing.com and clicking the Patreon/donate button. This is a community of everyday people who are interested in living with a deeper understanding of spiritual practice and how it can be applied in a practical sense to our everyday lives. Join us. Welcome to the Infinite Spark of Being podcast. My name is Keith Welsh, and in this episode, we're going to travel further down our path of karma yoga. Last week, we began, I talked a little bit about selflessness and what that meant, but then I did what I believe was a bit of a self-indulgent birthday episode. So if it was a little self-indulgent, I apologize. I hope you did get something out of it. Okay, so last night we had our journey group, which happens on the first Wednesday of every month, and we began unwrapping selflessness. So I'm going to kind of recap that. Those of you that were there, I'm sure I'll say something that I forgot to say last night. Okay, so let's understand a few terms first. First of all, let's forget the words karma and yoga for a moment and just look at this a little differently. Okay, ego, your ego is personal importance, personal identity, and reality testing. Reality testing means that you believe, or the organism believes, that it is a separate something in the universe. The personal importance and personal identity piece serve as evolutionary features that allow us to propagate the species. You have to have an ego. Your ego is wonderful if it's being a servant. If it's being the master, it's a little kooky. It's like the mind. The mind is a wonderful servant, but a horrible master. These are tools for navigating the human birth. You're not going to get rid of your ego. I don't care how much ayahuasca you drink. When people have said dissolving the ego, like when Terence McKenna has talked about, those of you that are psychedelic enthusiasts, I myself ingest a lot of psilocybin, and it's the dissolving of the ego means that for a moment you get those flashes of what would be called unitive consciousness, unity consciousness. The same thing happens in my experience through meditation, yoga, breath work. So by no means do you need to go and ingesting illicit substances in your community. I don't know where you live, but so that's what that means to be ego-less. But then you have to enter back into the body and be part of this again, because this is the work. This is the spiritual practice. Earth is an ashram, right? It's the, one of my teachers, Prem, would talk about, and this very much plays into this, that, she would refer to like somebody's job as their ashram. Because people would think that you'd go into these places and everyone's being just so holy and wonderful. But it's not, because when you go to these places, everyone's crazy. I've been in a lot of these situations, and people don't end up in these spiritual communities because everything's going well. We end up in them because we feel so just out of whack in the world, or we're so traumatized that we're trying to find some meaning or something, right? So Earth is an ashram. Understand that. It is a proving ground. It is a camp. It is a struggle. Everything struggles to live, and it's okay. It's not a doom and gloom message. It's just that, that's the fundamental dissatisfaction that or suffering that Buddha is talking about in the First Noble Truth. Okay, so that's the ego. It's fine, it's there. The other word I want you to understand is equanimity. Equanimity means no strong emotional response, evenness of temper. This is what Krishna is describing in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is what we're going to discuss this week. Which is the second Wednesday. Our insight group is where we specifically discuss the Bhagavad Gita. if we ever finish it, which, I mean, it's so vast, you could just spend years on one chapter. We'll study the Ramayana, things like that, but right now it's the Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna says all of the streams and oceans flow into, all of the streams and rivers flow into the ocean, but the ocean never oversteps its bounds. It is always the ocean. That's what it means. That it doesn't overflow. That's equanimity, right? That life flows into you. Old age, sickness, and death. Those are the three facts of life. And you will get old, you will get sick, and you will die. Everyone that you love and care for will get old, they will get sick, and they will die. Some of them don't get old, they just get sick and they die. Some of them just die. These are facts of being in the human incarnation. We have all of that flowing into us. So equanimity is the practice of being on earth. And the reason spiritual practice evokes or invokes or whatever equanimity is because, as my teacher would say, at the time of death, everyone is a snowflake in a blizzard. That when it comes time to face our mortality, we all kind of spiral, we all whirl, it's terrifying, right? And it's because, in my experience, especially being around, sometimes right at the time of death, it's very much a struggle because that part of us that is very much an animal just kicks on. And if there is strength to struggle, then there is struggle. Equanimity means, like I said, no strong emotional response, evenness of temper. It doesn't mean that you do not have an opinion. That is just being, aloof. So equanimity is that this sucks, but I'm okay. Ambivalence is when something happens and you have, very opposing, something happens and you feel there's two diametrically opposed opinions about something or someone, and you feel very strongly, you have very strong negative feelings and very strong positive feelings. That's ambivalence. That's not equanimity, that's ambivalence. And I guess to some extent, maybe equanimity becomes ambivalence on some level. I don't know. Sorry, I'm going over a drawbridge. So I just want you to understand those terms. Another one that I'm going to use a bit is holding space. To hold space for someone is, let's say you're telling me something, you're very upset about it, and instead of me offering opinions or suggestions and I'm just kind of there. I'm nodding, like, yeah, okay. I'm just there. I'm not giving you anything that you're not asking for. So the reason holding space is such an interesting or important concept is because ultimately that's what we find out that meditation is, that. And that the selflessness is a result of holding space. I'm not sure what the people behind me are honking at. We're all kind of in the same line of traffic. So selfless. Let's talk about, so myself as an entity, as a Keith Ness in the universe. When I take personality tests, I'm very controlling, very analytical, and very entitled. Those are my three big ones. So in any given situation, I'm trying to be a little less of that. Even like think about the controller aspect of my Keith samskara, my Keith personality is, when controller is being unskillful, it is trying to control all of its surroundings. It's trying to control you, the world, But then when I'm being skillfully controlling, I am only here to control myself. That I recognize that the only thing I can control is me, and that leads to maybe being more disciplined and all these things. So learning to hold space for that would mean that I'm not pushing too hard on my unskillful controllerness and not pushing too hard on my skillful controllerness. You can be overly disciplined and overly, controlling of yourself. Can you allow space for the organism to breathe, for the mind to breathe, for the mind to think and not need to do? It's so funny. The car in front of me has a sticker on it that says breathe. I love it. Can you allow space? And in that space allows us to affect our karma. There we are. Now we're back to karma yoga. This is why meditation is the specific practice that is mentioned in the Gita. As I mentioned last week, Krishna says at the start, at the beginning of time, there's two yogas. He discusses there's a jnana yoga, the yoga of contemplative, philosophical, thinky stuff. And then there's karma yoga, the yoga of action, the yoga of being in the world. Karma being the predisposition of the mind to attraction and aversion. Okay, so selflessness. Something is happening, there's something occurring, and I am trying to be a little less Keith. For instance, before I get into the karma yoga term I just brought up, I want to say this. I'm on my way to do a 2-day class, right? Sorry, it's a bit bumpy right here. If you believe that you would benefit from working with me one-on-one on grief and loss, anxiety, ruminating thinking, then shoot me an email or direct message. Or if you're interested in learning about meditation and how it can transform your reality and in turn change your life, then again, please reach out through email or direct message. Thank you. I know how I can be. I am co-facilitating this class with another gentleman, and I think I know how he is. And I can very easily just take the wheel, grab the reins, but that's not what this is about. So I need to be a little less selfish in that self-ish, get it? Self, Keith-ish. Self-ish. A little less of Keith, and allow some equanimity to fill in, because I'm sure there's things I'm going to agree with or disagree with and want to do differently, but can I create enough space to where I just let them unfold and not be attached to the outcome? Here's the next part of this. Non-attachment to outcome. I want everyone to do well, because ultimately as the teacher, that is a bit of a reflection on me. I don't know, to some extent yes, to some extent no, but I want everyone to do well, so I can't attach to the outcome. It's like when I work with you guys one-on-one. Some of you, we have worked very hard on some of your behaviors, that are creating a lot of turmoil and problems for you, and you'll have like a really good run, and then you're right back to doing the thing again, because you gave an inch, take a mile thing. So the outcome is whether or not, for some of you, it's whether or not you live, whether you enjoy your life or not. Some of you, it's whether or not you can accomplish this or that. So I have to let go of that and know that I did my part. Let go. Let God do what God does with all of this. There's a fine line between like, man, it's God's plan, or man, that's karma. It's a fine line. But if I didn't do my best and give you my best, then I know I didn't. I like to think that I always do, though. So non-attachment to outcome. How does this ultimately takes us into the karma yoga piece of this. How is this yoga? All right. Last night, one of the members had a question. She said, so is all of this because, this directly applies to our life here in the body and all that, or is this just because we're going to gain some spiritual whatever brownie points at the end? And I said it's both. Ultimately, what spiritual practice is the practice for the time of death, right? Like Lama Losan said, Everyone is a snowflake in a blizzard at the time of death. So I'm learning to create space here because ultimately the human birth, earth, is the ashram, the proving ground, the training field for the time of death. You learn to deal with these things so that when we die, the bardo doesn't become unbearable. For some of us, the trials and tribulations here are worse than others. It just depends on where you're at. Yeah. So, karma. If you're doing something that I disagree with, or I wish you understood something that I don't think you understand, and I become very wrapped up in my opinions, my perception, my perspective, and I'm very attached to it, right? There's a difference in non-attachment and detachment. If I'm very attached to it, and I'm attached to you understanding it my way and doing it my way, but you're gonna do it your way because you're having your own experience, then I will have a very bad time. It will be difficult for me. That, based on, attraction and aversion, that's my karma. A karma is the mind's predisposition to attraction and aversion. If I have an aversion to your behavior and I'm attached to that aversion, I have a bad time. If I can be non-attached to what I need you to do and just be there, say what I have to say, and let go, then I have an easier time of it. That improves my karma. Because now I'm having a better time of it. I'm allowing you your experience. It doesn't mean I don't have an opinion. That's the equanimity piece. And that is less selfish, right? Self-fullness would be that, like, I am full of myself and I'm trying to get myself across. I'm trying to turn you into me in some weird way. That's very selfish. We have a very weird, like, when I say selfish, it's like, I don't know, you're going to hear how you're going to hear it. But so this is what they're talking about, the path of selfless service, to serve the world. You do serve the world in your day-to-day life, regardless of what you're doing. You are in service to the world. You're in service to God through every moment of your day. This is it. Can you go to the grocery without being attached to the outcome? And the things that take you down and the things that don't take you down are going to be crazy. For me, I prefer a grocery store with a self-service line because I just fucking can't sometimes. Right? Like, I don't want to talk about my tattoos, your day. I don't need you being confused about what it is I'm purchasing. I just want to go home. I'm not at the grocery store to hang out. I'm there to fucking leave. So I always look for self-service. But like, I can sit in the face of some pretty extreme shit and be cool and think clearly and figure it out. But sometimes these little things take me down. That's, everybody's different. That's our karma. Karma, the predisposition of the mind to attraction and aversion. So how does that become yoga? You create enough space, you start to see the flow of things. You start to see the plan. In a weird way, you start to see that there is this weird, like, destiny, fate, or plan happening. It's kind of crazy. And that's when you start to see God in all of it. Just the movement of things. That it's all very appropriate and very lawful, actually. The word lawful, I think, is better. It's very lawful. Like, well, he's just such an asshole, or she's such a bitch, and da-da-da. It's like, that's very lawful that you're having that experience. What do you mean it's lawful that I'm having that experience? Well, you keep doing the same thing, so you're going to continue to have the same experience. I was just sitting here. No, you were thinking. You were caught in your thinking mind. One of those verses in the Gita that we talked about last night is that everybody acts helplessly. You're forced to act. Either the body or the mind or whatever. The mind will always think about it. The body will always have its response to it. Can you have enough space, like I said, that the organism responds the way it responds, and you hold space for the mind's opinions and the body's feelings? Space enough that instead of just slipping into your personality stuff, your self-fullness, that you give enough space that you can watch as the observer and go, oh my God, I'm doing it again. I'm creating this moment. I'm making this bad time for myself. Wasn't that it? Then that's kind of wild. So when you start looking at it as lawful, it's like, oh, of course I'm having this experience. I keep acting the same way. I keep behaving the same way. My behavior is the same. So my feeling, and behavior is not just like tapping my head. Behavior is also what my mind is doing. My mind is behaving a way. And instead of bringing my awareness to my breath in this moment, I put it on my mind. Energy flows where the attention goes. So I put my attention on my thoughts, more energy goes into the thinking mind, and then I think myself crazy. But when I create enough space, I start to see, oh, this is all just flowing. Interesting. Doesn't mean I don't have an opinion. Once I start to see the flow of things and the pattern, it doesn't mean I'm psyched about it, but I'm okay. And in that okay, that equanimity, that equanimous state, I can at least change my behavior, engage in metacognition and see my thoughts, move my thoughts, think differently, think about it in a more skillful way, and then change my experience. That's karma yoga, the path of selfless service. The service is just life, being alive. We are all in service to this thing. We're in service to friends, family, strangers. Think about it. Right now I'm driving. We're all in service to each other. We're all in this agreement that nobody's going to do anything crazy. The lady in front of me has a breathe sticker and a sticker that says live in the present. So appropriate. Yeah, if you can just be here, create space, just be cool. But we're all in service to each other. It doesn't mean that we go work in soup kitchens. It just means that, like you could have the most corporate-y, greed-laden job ever. You go to your meeting and you're in service to the people around you. Your job could be firing people all day long. That's just your job. That's your gig. It's fine. Can you do it selflessly? Yeah. Involve less of yourself in it. Don't attach to the outcome and just do what needs to be done. It's why the most interesting thing about the Gita is it's taking place on a battlefield, and that's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. He's like, look, you're here, dude. This is your job. You're a Shastriya. You're not a cow herder. You're not the charioteer even. You're the one that has to wield the weapon. So do it without involving all of your shit. Do what needs to be done. Some of you are going to hear that as a call to being a serial killer. If you did hear it that way, I'd like you to spend a little time thinking about that. Yeah, that's karma yoga. That's it. Can you act? Your self stuff comes up. Let it go. Notice it. Do what needs to be done. Okay, that's it. This Wednesday, chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, karma yoga. I love you. I love you. I love you. Bye. If you enjoy this content and you would like to support the creation of more of this content, go to the website, theinfinitesparkofbeing.com, and explore the many ways to do that. Also, click the About button, read a little bit about me, and see what I have to offer you. And don't forget to check out the Patreon tiers if you'd like to join a spiritual community of everyday people with not so everyday interests. go ahead and check out the Patreon/donate button on the website.